Let's talk about starting up your 8 kW Fisher Panda diesel generator. It's located below your aft cockpit hatch, right here. The things you want to think about before you start your generator up are checking the oil level. It's not uncommon. In fact, it's expected for a diesel generator to actually consume small amounts of oil during operation. So you do need to check that oil level on a regular basis, really every time you use a generator. The location of the dipstick on the 8 kW Fisher Panda generator is behind that inspection plate on the side of the case. To access the dipstick, remove the inspection plate. You'll see the red handle just inside the casing. Pull the dipstick out. It's good to have a rag handy to catch any oil that may drip. Wipe the dipstick off. Reinsert it. Make sure it's all the way in. Pull it back out. Look at the oil level, make sure it's between the two marks. This one is, it looks fine. It may have consumed just a small amount, but certainly within the safe range. Wipe it back off. Reinsert it. Put the inspection plate back on. And if your levels are right, and they were in this case, you are ready to go. You need to check the cooling water, the freshwater cooling and cooling solution. The bottles beside the generator, you'll see a minimum and maximum level there. So you want to make sure that the water is between those two levels. It's a good practice to check your intake strainer by removing the cap from it and checking for debris inside. You'll want to open the seacock that's labeled generator. That allows the water flow to go through the generator and keep it cool. The fuel fill for the generator is on the back deck. Depending on which boat, you could have somewhere between 20 and 23 gallons of diesel fuel on the boat. That's good enough to run your generator at least 60 hours under normal load, so you have plenty of run time. The next thing you're going to want to do after checking your fuel level and all the things we talked about below decks is make sure your battery select switches are turned on, because that's where the starter for the generator gets its power. Before you crank your generator, be sure and check your 120 volt AC part of your AC/DC panel and make sure that all the breakers are off, so you do not start the generator with something already in operation. Then make sure the cover panels that are on your inlet switches are covering up shore 1 and shore 2 so that you cannot bring in any shore power when you're bringing in the generator power. At that point, you can turn the generator switch to generator and the transfer switch below it on. At this point, you're ready to start your generator. To do that, you press the on-off button and you'll see the green light come on, and you'll see some displays just as the thing boots up. You'll see your fuel level here in the bottom right hand corner so that you know you have fuel. If you're happy with that, then you press slightly and release the start stop button, and it's normal to have a pause at that point. You'll see the light flash while the generator begins to warm up a little bit, and then it'll crank on its own. Give it time to do that. Don't panic. It will start. And there you hear the motor cranking there. When the generator achieves the desired RPM level, you'll see your ammeter and your voltmeter light up to let you know you have power. You'll see the green light on, indicating the generator is generating power. And if the transfer switch is on, you'll see the green light on, indicating that it is transferring power from load group 1 that's being fed by the generator through the transfer switch to load group 2, which is also being fed by the generator. At this point, you can choose the options that you want to have on. I like to have the battery charger on to make sure my batteries are being charged from whatever loads I'm putting on them. Then you can choose from there. If you were using your air conditioner, you have your air conditioner controls here. If you are using your air conditioner or cockpit coolers, make sure you turn on the air cooler pump, because each of those components uses water to keep those things warm or cool depending on what selections you make. Before we leave the topic of the generator, I want to talk a little bit about sequential startup of your AC components and just a little bit about load management. And what I'm about to tell you is also true if you're on shore power and not the generator. We have a lot of components here that demand high loads, especially at startup, and we want to be careful about how we start them up. I'm going to talk about the load group 2 side on this boat. As I mentioned earlier, the air cooler pump should be on if you're using either air conditioner or the cockpit coolers. There's an air conditioner down below inside both cabins, and there's a second air conditioner, different one, for up top at the helm. Once the air cooler pump is on, you can turn on any one of those units pretty much right away. And I'll start with the cabin air conditioner. Now when that's turned on, before you turn on either of the other components, the cockpit cooler or the helm air conditioner, you want to give the cabin air conditioner time to cycle. I'm going to say about 1.5 to 2 minutes. That eliminates the spiking of the unit starting up before you turn on the next unit. And if you watch the ammeter, you'll see the amps begin to come up. You see there it jumped from 2 to 10, and then it'll come back down. Once the amps come back down, you can give it just a minute to be running smoothly, and then turn on the next unit. I'll turn on the helm air conditioner unit next. And then go through the same process and give that time to cycle as well. And once that cycling has taken place, and those amps go up and down again, then if desired, you can turn on the cockpit cooler box. There's no problem with running all three of those components and more. The issue that you want to think about is the staggered startup, so you're not asking the generator to have too much power all at once to start all three of those units. So now I'll turn on the cockpit cooler box, and it can run through its cycle as well. The other high draw units that we have here are the water heater and the microwave and the grill. All those are high loads on the AC side. So if you turn all those on along with all these coolers that are on, you could exceed the amperage draw that's allowed. The important thing there is to cycle those in or choose what you need to have on. That's called load management. So you can see I'm running 19, almost 20 amps here. With the generator running, I have 56 amps that I can use. With shore power, there's 30. So with just one shore cord or with the generator running, you want to add the 2 ammeters up to make sure the total doesn't exceed 56 with the generator and does not exceed 30 with the shore cord. So if I turn on the water heater on this side, you'll see the amp meter come up. And notice that I'm getting up there in that 30 range now, which is fine for the generator. Once the water is hot in the water heater, then the element will go off and that number will come back down. The other thing you can do by way of load management is turn it off, and you'll have hot water, and then turn it back on when you need it, since that's one of the large draws. The grill will do the same thing. If you turn the grill on and then go operate it, it will be at a high level when you're operating the grill. As the element heats up, when it cools down, the level will go back down. So the key is to watch these two numbers and make sure that they don't exceed 56 on the generator and 30 on shore power. Well, you have the generator started up to use for the day. At the end of the day, you're going to need to shut it down. So we'll go through the sequence of doing that, because there is a sequence to follow to do it right. The first thing you're going to want to do as you shut the generator down is turn all the loads on each individual component that you've started up off, and make sure everything on the AC load groups, both of them, 1 and 2, are in the off position. Once that's the case, then you can turn the generator switch off and the transfer switch off. Notice when you do that, the generator continues to run. It's a good practice at this stage, particularly if you've been using the generator for a long period of time, to allow the generator to run for about 5 minutes to flash off the heat that it's charged up while it was running, and cool it down so it doesn't sit there and get hot once you've turned it off. And that could shorten the life of the generator and do some damage to the coil. So you want to give it a little bit of time there. Let me mention too that what you're doing up here in this part of the panel has nothing to do with what's going on with your 12-volt panel here. So you can leave all your DC controls on as they were. So after the period of time that you need to let the generator run, about 5 minutes, shutting it down from there to actually shut the generator off is as simple as going to the start-stop button, not the on-off. The on-off turns on the panel, the start-stop turns on and off the generator. So you press the start-stop button just for a second, and the generator shuts down. Once the green light stops flashing there, then you come over to the on-off button, you press that, and the generator is off and you're finished for the day. Except for one thing, be sure when you're finished to shut the generator seacock. It's a good practice on all boats if you're not using the component to shut the seacock associated with it, so there's no open ways into the boat in case there's a problem for water to get in.